What is your ledge? What image comes to mind when you think of the word ledge? For me, it is standing at a window, ready to jump. This memory is still so vividly engraved in my mind. The walls of the room painted brilliant white, that potent smell of boarding school that I will probably never forget. My bed is standing on the right and there's another on the left, with a desk in the middle, under the window that I'm walking towards, thinking that it will solve all my problems. Just 5 minutes ago, I'm subjected to another beating. I'm 13 years old, but the thought of not being able to see my 2-year-old brother grow up prevents me from pulling through. Statistics from the UK show that 3 times as many men die from suicide and are less likely to seek psychological therapies than women. In 2020, the age-standardized mortality rate, or ASMR, was 10 deaths per 100,000 people, with over 5,000 suicides, of which more than 75% were men. In Canada, the ASMR for 2020 was 10.1 with close to 4,000 suicides. Thankfully, we can see a decline in these figures, but this downward trend is nowhere near going fast enough. Society's expectation and traditional gender roles play a major role why men are less likely to discuss or seek help with their mental health problems. Men are still expected, or feel that it is still expected of them, to be breadwinners, to be strong, dominant and in control. Whilst I don't believe this to be a true representation for myself, this stigma is so deeply engraved within me that when I struggled, I acted upon this stigma, remained silent and tried to just man up. But silence is deadly. Every story of a struggle is different, but they don't make the struggle each of us experience less real or painful. From an outside perspective, I had the perfect childhood. My father was a very successful businessman, founding one of the largest software businesses in Europe, operating from a small town in Germany. I had everything that a child could ask for. My own bedroom, more toys than you can imagine, the latest computers and games. But my childhood was scary. With my father's fame and success, I would be the one bullied for it. What made me want to take my own life as I was standing on that ledge, looking down from that window, was a result of keeping silent over the torment that I had been exposed to for years. But how did it get this far? I was anonymous at my new school as I transitioned from primary. But all of that would change as we returned from our summer vacation. It was announced that the school was broke and we were all at risk of being reschooled. To prevent this, my father takes control and becomes the general manager after paying off the debts together with other parents. Envy drive older students to torment, beat and even taser me as I agreed to board 3 nights at the school. My parents and staff had convinced me that it would be an excellent experience and it would help me become more independent and extroverted. I don't tell anyone what is going on. Man up and learn how to stand up for yourself is going through my mind. Years later, history has its way of repeating itself. As my wife and I moved 3 hours away to another town over my child being exposed to racial abuse, and the school not willing to take any responsibility or act. The difference? My kid spoke up, whereas I didn't. My parents did nothing wrong sending me to boarding school. They did what any parents, including myself, would do. They thought it was best for me and my development. However, as I was becoming more and more difficult, eventually everything came out. As I burst into tears over an argument with my older sister that escalated to a threat to sending me to board the whole of the week. Not having had the capacity to communicate what was happening made the situation worse. But the fear of even more torment became greater than finally speaking out. For years, the ledge had been a place so dangerous and threatening to me. But by removing me from boarding school under the protection of my parents and staff, allowed me to process these past experiences. I was able to build up courage and strength in ways I did not appreciate at the time. It allowed me to see the ledge in a whole new light. The ledge became a place of risk, but the beautiful kind, like standing at the top of a mountain, able to see into the distance. I came across this caption that felt life-changing and so relatable to me. The best view comes after the hardest climb. You see, a huge turning point for me came 2 years later, at 15 years old, when I joined my parents for breakfast one Tuesday morning. And somehow it just popped out of my mouth. Papa, what do you think if I went to school in England? My mother nearly fainted, but I knew exactly where I wanted to go. My father tells me that this is a one-way ticket and you cannot change your mind after 5 days. No one believes I'm going through with it. But Saturday, my mother and I fly to England. Monday, we look at the school. And Tuesday, I have my first day at my new boarding school that was far from any luxury that I was used to. It was a life-changing experience, and for the first time in my life, I felt empowered. And that shell that my parents so desperately wanted me to come out of was gone. You would think that I was set up for life from here, but life is full of transitions. That multi-$100 million business that my father had built over 20 years was lost from one day to the next. It was like standing at the base of Mount Everest, faced with a decision to make. Turn back and retire with what was left, or move forward and risk everything with a new mission and develop something completely different in the hope to reach the peak. But the ascent came with challenge after challenge. My father suffered an aneurysm, losing his short-term memory and ability to read and write just as we were getting started. Working with my father has been one of the greatest privilege, but also challenge at the same time. Despite all obstacles, we carried on working. But nothing could prepare me for the biggest challenge that I would ever have to face: myself. When climbing Everest, there's this term, turn back time. Basically, if you did not reach the peak by 2 p.m., you turn back, no matter what, or you will risk certain death. This is one of those ledge moments. Will you risk your life if you're just 200 meters away from your peak? You can see it. The peak is within your grasp, but you have reached turn back time. What will you do? It's a very difficult question to answer in the comfort of this auditorium. We ran out of money several times, but this time was different. I managed to get some fresh capital for our development, but just 2 weeks later, I received the call from my mother telling me that my father suffered another stroke. My brother and I drive 800 kilometers through the night. As I'm sitting at my father's bedside, I'm contemplating and reflecting. Life is so fragile. There was so much more that I wanted to achieve. I feel guilty for not reaching that mountain peak together. As I leave the hospital that evening, I kiss my father on the forehead, probably telling him for the first time that I love him. In the middle of that night, I answer the call from the hospital, who tell me that my father had just passed away. I feel lost. I isolate myself and am in a deep depressive state that leads to poor decision making. Within 6 months, I lose everything again. I don't give myself time to grieve and feel like the biggest failure, thinking I can't get anything right. I blame myself that my decisions result in my wife, our 4 children, and I become temporarily homeless, asking myself how I was able to let this happen. It takes me 3 years to overcome the loss of my father and the business that we try to build. But hitting rock bottom allows me to see more clearly and discover that there is life after failure. These words, life after failure, they may seem so trivial, but they have a far from trivial meaning to me. Letting go And living life without chasing success, fame, fantasizing and living for our project was life after failure for me. I take time out and teach myself new soft skills. Growing food, building barbecues, filmmaking and storytelling. That all has helped me to learn how to open up and ask for help. But it has taken me almost 40 years. Opening up and working with a therapist is nothing to be ashamed of. And it is helping me to develop myself into a man with a superpower. Life is a gift. And every step we take, attempting to reach the peak of whichever mountain we decide to climb, our perspective of life, of ourselves, and the outlook will change. Define what the ledge means to you and get comfortable with the uncomfortable. It is time for us to break the stigma where we men keep believing that we are so strong, having to man up when life gets tough. We don't. Whilst challenging, it is important that we appreciate and love the journey, because when we get there and look over that ledge, it is with a new perspective, as we no longer are the same person we were starting out. So what does it mean to be a man? I would love us to ask ourselves whether a shift in perspective away from judgment can empower us to evolve away from the narrative that we have created that has defined men for decades. Can we redefine what it means to be a man and learn how to open up and ask for help? That does have the power of saving lives. Thank you.